Salutations from space and aloha from Earth, friends. This is Gemini Brett of More Than Astrology, here with part 2 of 2019 astrology, a bit of a look ahead. Here's to you, friends. Thank you, Tea Monk Po, for this incredible tea. We're drinking some Chaud Puer from the 1980s. Mountain Temple, a really wonderful image for the energies of this year and how we can connect to them, which is what I'm most interested in expressing with you here today and in the future parts, which will be transmitted. I don't know exactly when. All right, so there's already been one part, and basically what I'm doing here is taking time to really play within many of the slides and themes that I developed in a presentation that I delivered to the San Francisco Astrological Society on January 6th, 2019, recently. Okay, so in part 1, which has already been recorded and posted to YouTube and all that, and whether you're watching this on Facebook Live or at YouTube in the future, I really hope that you'll give it a like and leave a comment and share this around. That really helps spread the word, you know. In part 1, we did some calendar calisthenics, just asking this question, why January 1st? Why the Gregorian calendar anyway? And then really focusing on this image of kind of be here now. So here are images for cast for San Francisco, California, for January 1st of midnight 2019 and January 1st of midnight 2020, shown in a 0 Aries or natural chart wheel to make it in a sense more global, although this moment in time, clock time, it's not a global thing. And that's all kind of part 1 stuff, where I also explored Pluto and Pluto's movement between these 2 dates, Pluto's course over the course of a year. And just to get to that punchline, and a bit of a review if you already watched the first video, that this is my suggestion for connecting to Capricorn Pluto, the depths and the rebirth and the evolution of the roots of the world tree, connecting to the indigenous wisdom and focusing on our own personal transformation in the body, in the depth of our body and of our society, but starting within and going within Inipi or Sweat Lodge is one intention I have for this year, practice that I intend to return to and deepen my understanding of and connection to, so that I can open more to the dream works. Okay, so this is one of my principal themes for 2019 is to really work the dream. There can be no revolution without revelation, friends, right? So DreamWorks, you know, obviously I use this logo intentionally. We see this child fishing from the moon, which is an interesting thing. As much as Neptune and Pisces and Pisces and Neptune in general can be about that amazing work of our dreams and an opening to the truth that dreams work, it can be the way that we are worked by our dreams, reality, you know, the dream that is in a way given for us. And I don't mean to go to conspiracy theory here, but very importantly, I mean, the way that we can be, in a sense, encouraged to connect only to the collective dream instead of dreaming our own forth, or even a dream that was given to our collective rather than the one that we together are dreaming forth, if that is possible. Maybe I'm drinking too much of this Mountain Temple tea, but we know that the media and big corporations like DreamWorks, for example, might just through the magical technology of the silver screen cast some kind of web of unreality over us that would take us away from practicing and participating in the real world. On the other side of the thing, are we not the dreamers of this dream? And to do so responsibly, I think, is part of the calling of the human experience, should we choose to have this, finding our way to lucidity within this collective dream. All right, Neptune found its way to the very middle of Pisces, which in modern expression is where Neptune makes home. It's said that Neptune is the ruler of the sign of Pisces from a modern astrological perspective. And Neptune has been in the sign of Pisces since 2011 and full stop since 2012. Until 2025, a little bit of coming back in for some unfinished business in late 2025 and early 2026. But right now, Neptune is in the very middle degrees of Pisces, beginning January 1st, 2019 at 14 degrees, and then 16 degrees January 1st, 2020. So this is halfway through this great era of Neptune, which many feel is at home in the sign of Pisces. And here's the synodic cycle of Neptune this year. Sun can join Neptune March 6th, 16 degrees, 10 minutes Pisces. So we really see that we're centering into that essence of Pisces, and the synodic cycle of Sun and Neptune will be in all of the mutable signs, which I know is the service to spirit signs, or the spirit of their element. So what is the spirit of the water? All right, the spirit of the water, which I see as Pisces, and in so many ways certainly expressed through the Neptunian energy, is that we are all connected. You know, it's a strange thing, but I'm told it's true that in this incredible tea that I drink, it is composed of a water that holds not only the P of Plato, but of Genghis Khan and and all that ever was, is, and will be. This is the essence and the art and the beauty and the spirit of the water. We are all connected. Neptune was discovered in this way. Neptune was discovered using math, because after Uranus was discovered in a sense through this freaky accident, in the 18th century, in the 19th century, Neptune was discovered because it was shown that something out there, something mysterious, something unseen was pulling on Uranus. And so again, discovered with the telescope in 1846, it was Neptune, but we knew where to point them because we saw this pulling on Uranus. In other words, everything is connected. We are all in the same boat. There is only one water, and water in so many ways, alchemically speaking, in the ancient traditions was seen, at least in the Platonic, or I should say Pythagorean tradition, seen as like, in a way, like a higher element. I shouldn't say that higher in density. It was just something like more expanded than the others, right? There's something about water. I always felt it was so like egoic to be looking for extraterrestrial life on planets and having this criterion that the planet or moon or whatever must hold liquid water. That seems so like Earth-centric, and because we need it, others would need it. I don't necessarily think that's true. But the more that we engage with the spirit of the water, and we understand that water is life, as we've been reminded of quite recently, and not necessarily in the easiest dream, the more we understand this incredible connectivity and this incredible compassionate flowing ways of the water realms. And this is something that we're, I think, really being encouraged as Neptune finds its way to the middle of Pisces now, not to get lost in this dream soup that's being shown to you, or what you're being told to dream for, but really get responsible about how we dream our reality into play. And so doing some dream work, you know, doing some journaling, or maybe even more powerfully, rather than, you know, taking some dream out of the dream world into this real world, you know, kind of a crash course by putting it in awakened language, you know, honoring it through poetry or through dance or through play, but really coming back into the truth of, like, I'll say the woo. And that's part of my mission in this year, which you'll hear from me as I continue to explore the astrology of 2019. We'll do that by coming in a bit and finding Uranus, who's really taking, in so many ways, center stage astrologically now, because Uranus has recently changed signs. Uranus, about an 84-year orbit about the place, and that means 84 divided by 12, about 7 years per sign. Uranus first ingressed first ingressed Taurus on May 15th, 2018, but stationed retrograde August 7th, 2018 at 2.5 degrees Taurus, and dove back into the Aries fires on November 6th, 2018, where Uranus begins this year of 2019, and stationed direct, however, on the date of Epiphany on January 6, 2019 at 20.5 degrees Aries, tropical Aries, and will make way back into Taurus March 6th, 2019. and stay in Taurus all the way until 2025 before Gemini ingress. So Taurinus is born, you know, and this really began last year, and we certainly see symbols of it, right? But I will say, and this is very important, that synodically speaking, synod meaning meeting, the meeting of Sun in Uranus, the cycle that we are currently in, if you start the cycle as I and most do with the Sun-Uranus conjunction, the last Sun-Uranus conjunction was April 18th, 2018 in the sign of Aries. Okay, it was the last Sun-Uranus conjunction in the sign of Aries, most likely in your lifetime, because there won't be another one in that sign for about 84 years, okay? The first Sun-Uranus cazimi, cazimi meaning in the heart of it, in the throne room. So Sun-Uranus conjunction, the first in the sign of Taurus, most likely in your lifetime, April 22nd, 2019. And not necessarily the first of your lifetime, because the last was 1935, and you might be one of our wise elders who's carrying the transmissions from that time. We'll look at an example of that coming ahead. But I will say that this is very important. Yes, Uranus has been in Taurus. Yes, we've seen symbols of this, but in a way it truly begins when Earth, Sun, and Uranus all align, and that happens April 22nd, 2019 for the first time in Taurus in modern time, okay? What you see here is the dates of the rest of the synodic cycle, Sun moving through the fixed signs and aligning to Taurus through square and opposition, and the waning square of the cycle before the next cazimi in 2020, also in the sign of Taurus, and we'll have these Sun-Uranus conjunctions in Taurus for about 7 years. Actually, yeah, 6-7 years moving forward. All right, so this is a big deal. And this is more than I guess I want to teach today. I'll just say it's very interesting. When you track the Uranus synods, the Sun-Uranus conjunctions, you find that there is a breath or a beat, a rhythm where every beat is 84 years and 1 day. And that 1 day piece really matters, because like this synod that's coming up in 2.5 degrees Taurus on April 22nd, 2019, it last expressed this particular bit of the Sun-Uranus dance, last expressed April 22nd, 1935, okay, 1.5 degrees Taurus. And 84 years and a day before that, 1851, 84 years and a day before that in 1767. Days not looking like exactly 1 day when you look at those calendar dates because of leap year, Gregorian, wild stuff, and the numbers of hours and whatever. But you can see most importantly that this synod is moving through the degrees about 1 degree at a time. And then it first came into Taurus in 1851. I'm not going to say a whole bunch about what was happening at that time. Historically, you know, we can certainly see that at least in this country, civil war and, you know, but also spiritualism expansion. Uranus itself discovered in 1846, right? So not long before that particular synod in Taurus, and therefore in Aries cycle at that time. And sorry, Neptune was discovered then. That's my bad. Uranus discovered in 1781. So let me try to course correct. I'm actually stop my share here and just wrap with you for a second by diving into the depth and the beauty of Uranus and how profound this discovery was and remains, okay? Because visibly, the last planet we see, in a sense, is Saturn, right? And so Saturn's been known since ancient times. But in 1781, Caroline and William Herschel, playing with a telescope and looking for comets, which was the thing to do at that time in the late 1800s, as our technology was evolving, we might say. Telescopes were getting bigger, and a lot of people were comet hunting. This was the time of the Industrial Revolution, electricity recently kind of harnessed, American Revolution, French Revolution. So much as it is true in astrology, as we, in a way, assign the energetic of a planet to the zeitgeist of the time in which it was discovered, all of these revolutionaries seem to be part of the Uranian energy. Now, breakthroughs, okay? And in a way, accidents. I mean, in a sense, this planet was discovered by accident. The Herschels thought it was a comet, announced this new comet they found, and when it was tracked for a few days by many astronomers, it was like, that's not a comet, it's moving like a planet. That can't be. And yes, and we were just, you know, blasted out of this ancient cosmology where everything stopped at Saturn. I mean, think about how profound that is. Now, this was not the first time Uranus had been seen, even in modern times. This is a very important clue about what Uranus is. And before I go there, let me just say that I feel personally, we would never have made this breakthrough without a very powerful breakthrough some centuries before, which is the Copernican revolution of a heliocentric or sun-centered cosmology. Yeah? Now, the Copernican revolution was not the first heliocentric cosmology. You don't have to get too far back to Pythagoras and other the wisdom keepers back in the day who really knew that things moved about a central fire, but maybe that's a tale for another time. We certainly, at the discovery of Uranus, were locked in this geocentric or earth-centered cosmology. And so this was a very significant shattering, when Copernicus made that breakthrough, obviously, and then when Uranus discovered, now the heliocentric trip had mostly been honored, right? That we were orbiting the sun. And so just that shift in cosmology, in a sense, gave us permission to look through the veil that would allow us to see that there were other planets out there. Uranus discovered first in this kind of freaky way. And the thing is, Uranus had been seen before. In fact, we were able to catch up with the ephemerides or the tables that track Uranus's orbit so much more quickly than we would have if Uranus had not previously been seen, but it had. People had recorded what they thought was just a star or something showing up. And so it shows up in all of these different astronomical records predating its discovery, potentially as just some dim star, but it was the planet Uranus. Now, this is very important, okay? Uranus, and I want to go searching for an image on my computer really quickly. Uranus is sometimes visible. And so it is my feeling that Uranus is one of Uranus's most important contributions to the whole thing, is that it helps us connect the visible realms, which in so many ways end with Saturn, to the invisible realms, which we say begin with Uranus, but truthfully begin with Neptune, because Uranus is sometimes visible. I personally have been initiated in the deserts of Joshua Tree. I saw Uranus with my naked eyeball, but I knew where to look because I utilized the technology, which at that time was my cell phone, which told me where this very dim planet was aligned to, in a sense, with the stars nearby. So I knew where to look, and then saw with my own naked eye Uranus. Now, I've come recently into this contemplation of their kind of two principal states of the human experience, and they are reflected by the angles of the chart. And one is that we are lying down. You know, usually we'll be born and laid on the mother's side or breast, laying down, and then maybe father or doctor or something holding us up vertically is one of the ways I'm first receiving these images. But it's brought me to this idea that there's like these lying down planets, that Pluto, which is so much about our shamanic restructuring and evolution. It's like surrender is the great gift that we can give to allow the permission of those shifts in our lives that can really be carried through the Plutonic energies. And it's like, you got to lay down and surrender, man. You know, Neptune was so much about dreams and the realms of vision. Well, laying down and allowing the body to go into a paralysis so we can move through space and time in a different way, in consciousness in the dream realm. It's like a laying down planet. And Uranus, I feel, is like the messenger that moves between those outer dream surrender realms, which continues, by the way, through Haumea, Maki Maki, Eris, and the so-called dwarf planet line beyond and further out, okay? But then Saturn, which is the edge or the skin of the solar system on the way into the sun, or, you know, traditionally we could say Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Earth, right? The Chaldean order, bringing that energy through the far out Saturn, the skin of the solar system, the end of this visible structure, and bringing now this, in a sense, psychic planets, you know, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, beyond, psyche planets, you know, collective planets, these more generational, slower movers. And, you know, these discoveries and when they were made are so important, like Pluto being discovered around these times where we were really going through some serious death and rebirth restructuring, you know. And I'm going to bring in the Jungian and Freudian breakthroughs, and you know, I don't want to take too much time here, but I do want to show this image here. All right. This is a beautiful way to think about Uranus. And this card, the Tower card, is a heavy thing often to look at, you know. But understand that the lightning bolt, which Uranus is often associated with, is coming from the heavens. So Uranus, you may know, is in so many ways revolutionary and freaky, and Uranus dances in a sense on its side as it's orbiting the sun. It spins sideways so that its pole very much is facing towards the sun instead of perpendicular to it. So instead of spinning like this and going around as most of the planets do, Uranus is doing this thing. And it creates wild seasons and wild electricity on Uranus and all sorts of other amazing things. I speak about this a lot in a presentation you can find on YouTube called Uranian Revelations that I recorded for EA Zoom meetings in April of 2018. And I speak about this some too, this Tower card, this idea of the lightning bolt coming into crash structure, you know? And see, the old material ways, in a sense, need to get broken apart so that these lying down planets, these dreams, you know, the surrender energy, opening to more of a collective psyche and such, can come into our awareness here in the so-called real world that we can touch and knock on with our hands and whatnot. And this is one of the great roles of Uranus. Uranus, who connects the standers to the lying down ones by being a planet who spins on its side. You see, that's what I was getting at earlier. And so the lightning bolt comes, and where did it strike? It struck the crown of the king and blasted it off his head. And so here he is in his red cape saying, screw it, like I might as well see if I can fly. He's been released from this weight of a crown that would weigh him down, you see. Not so for the queen, whose crown is still on her head and wears this frown, falling in a sense backwards. There's a beautiful surrender in that, but in a sense seeming so sad about it and falling, perhaps she thinks, to her death. You see her robe still connected to that window. But 3 windows, and 3 in the tarot is the number of Empress nurturing in a Venus card. And in the 3 windows, you can see the flames take the shape of the phoenix, the bird of regeneration who rises from its ashes, you see. And the fire taking the form of the yod, and some fly away, it seems, from Queen in blue, but fly towards the one who chooses to jump. I feel the jumper and the faller are shown in this card, and that it's so important. They're both going to survive. There's a moat down there we can't see, and they will both have their opportunity to rebuild their righteous tower from the crumbled bricks of this which was not theirs, but one instead that was handed to them by culture, rules, society, what may it be. And so the lightning comes from the heavens to blast that crown off so that the crown can now be open to receiving the divine realms of spirit, which we cannot necessarily see with eyes, yeah, unless we release the clutter that might be around this other eye that would keep us from perceiving a reality that seems so unreal in this weird place. So Uranus, in a sense, comes first, and from a traditional perspective, like Mars, out from these outer realms, crashing the Saturnian realm, which is the entire real realm, apart, so that these waters of Pisces and Pluto can come in, maybe heavenly and hellish waters at that, coming into our reality so that we can expand beyond the limits of our senses and open to so much more. And so Uranus, in so many ways, is this gateway who makes itself available to our own visibility if we know where to look. And technology has certainly helped in this process. And in a sense, is a gateway planet to the outer realms. And after, like Mars, coming in to crash the realms apart, Uranus now, like Mercury, heads back to Neptune, to Pluto, and beyond to say, hey, if you want to communicate with these cats, this is how it works. They have words and hands and weird stuff like that. So let me tell you what I have seen there, and comes back and forth. You know, Mars, Mercury, Mars, Mercury. So we say that Uranus is a higher octave of Mercury, and it's so in many ways true, and a planet so associated with astrology, because like this event I describe, astrology allows us to break through the limits of the seen world and start engaging with the world beyond the veil. Uranus is such an incredible keeper of these mysteries, and Mercury first was the magician that brought us such great gifts as astrology. Yeah. But that side of Uranus, Mars, I think we very much honor in speaking about Uranus as the revolutionary Promethean who stole fire from the gods, a lightning bolt that comes to change and rearrange, and sometimes through disaster and destruction. And that brings me here. Okay. Because when Uranus ingressed from the waters of Pisces to the fires of Aries, and that was March 11th, 2011. I should say first it was in 2010, but Uranus hit retrograde, went back into Pisces, and then came from the waters of Pisces to the fire of Aries on March 11th, the same day of a great earthquake, tsunami, and the Fukushima reactor disaster, the nuclear meltdown in Japan, right? 10 days before a March equinox, first probably in our lifetimes, Aries, Uranus synod. Aries Sun conjunct Uranus was on the equinox day, and therefore in the first degree of the tropical zodiac. There you see 0 degrees and 32 minutes Aries. And as I said, this cycle is 84 years in a one day of these synods, so it had moved itself from Pisces, right, from in what we think of in so many ways as the last degree of the zodiac, to the first degree of the zodiac, Aries, on March 21st, 2011. This was over 20,000 years in the making. And I will say that this symbol in the world without of Fukushima is such an imperative symbol of the world within. Not only asking us, how are we regulating our power, and when does it run out of control and become toxic and potentially deadly? But are we willing to harness this great energy? Where are we playing God, for example? Prometheus, said to be the one who created us, also was punished for stealing fire to give to us. Now, we were created in these stories of Greek mythos in clay and in the image of the guides, which I love because it suggests we are ever moldable and that we in ourselves are creators. And Prometheus gave us this great creative impulse and gave us the fire, which we might see as technology, but what are we doing with it? Now we can ask that question as a culture, and we can ask that question personally. Yeah, and I think that's something we are being inspired to do in both regards by this very important happening that we are asked, I would ask you and I ask me not to forget, because we are asked now, as Sun Uranus moves into Taurus this year of 2019, to respond to this great happening of Fukushima and make sure we don't just bury that or push it away, and understand that it was a seed that we are asked to, in a sense, water and help this plant, which does not have to be so disruptive or terrible or nightmare, grow into the realm of our shared dream. All right. So this time now, with Taurus being born, is the time to go there. And I love that this cat was born with Uranus and Taurus in his nativity, shortly after the most recent Sun-Uranus synod in the sign of tropical Taurus, which was April 22nd, 1935, came this cat Hans-Jörg Weiss, who recently, you can see Uranus at about 5 degrees tropical Taurus in his nativity. And this is a time unknown, right? So he cast a 12 p.m. chart here, which shows Virgo on the ascendant, but we don't know. But certainly Virgo sun sign, which put Uranus in the 9th whole sign, a place of the vision quest among many other things. And very importantly, here is Weiss, who's committed to donating $1 billion to preserve Earth's natural spaces. And I love that so much. I mean, may Taurus and Uranus in Taurus, may Taurus be a response to such themes like this, and these technologies which have been so against the earth, and inspire technologies that are actually for earth. May we awaken the philanthropists, you know, in that side of Taurus, to protect the earth, you know, even through this strange thing like money, so that we don't continue to accelerate the extinction of so many species, including perhaps our own. May Taurinus be about the embrace of Gaia by Uranus again, and vice versa. May this be a time of earth forward technologies, earth first technologies like solar roads and solar tiles, you know, and composting bricks. And I mean, there's so many beautiful new breakthroughs of technology that will help us clean up Earth, right? So, I mean, like in the Bay right now, they're building this great machine that was envisioned by one of these great young Taurus. Well, yeah, I guess I should just share. I mean, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune all got together in Capricorn in the early 90s. A lot of people were born with that signature, bringing these amazing technological breakthroughs, which don't have to be anti-Earth, but can be very much for Earth. All right. So the thing that's being built here in the Bay is like meant to go clean up these, you know, continent-sized trash islands in the middle of the oceans, and they seem that they will be effective. So there's a lot of things like this that are Earth-first technologies. It brings me to this idea of hashtag Dear Moon. Yasaku Maezawa, who Elon Musk announced in September of 2018 would be the first civilian to orbit the moon in a SpaceX craft. And not only did he buy one seat, but he bought them all and said he would bring artists. So much of art lives in the Venus and Tauresian realm, so that we who don't go can experience the moon not just through pictures, but through painting and song and dance. I mean, how beautiful is this, right? So that's meant to happen in 2023, and we will see. Here's this man's chart, time unknown, and his chart with Elon Musk's in the middle. Elon Musk, the visionary behind SpaceX and Tesla and Solar City, the Boring Company, the latter being an idea of taking traffic underground. So this is a very revolutionary being who seems to become, you know, more and more in the public eye as Uranus moves into Taurus. And I think these ideas of, you know, electric cars, solar technology, bringing the space thing into the human or civilian force, for I think some of that's really beautiful, right? I mean, like Elon Musk is committed to reusable rockets. It's a wonderful thing. Instead of them just turning into trash, they come and they land themselves and can be used again, as a beautiful symbol of what I love to think of for Uranus and Taurus being, you know, this kind of Earth first technology. Now in 2019, both SpaceX and Boeing will have a chance to take astronauts to the International Space Station, right? This is the first ever time that civilian rockets would do so. I think this is very much a statement about Taurus. And I like to apply that into this idea of how can we reach out in this embrace of heaven and earth and heaven. You know, Elon speaks about the potential, you know, comet disaster, and that we have to make ourselves multiplanetary in case something like that happens. And I love that. This man's quest to go to Mars probably first, but how much in that own quest of saving humanity are we not thinking Earth first, right? So he's taken a lot of flack, this man, for thinking about reinventing the internet and the coming 5G breakthrough by, instead of doing towers locally on the ground, making a network of 4,000 low Earth orbit satellites to, you know, cover the globe in this World Wide Web. And there's something I think that can be beautiful in that, and something that's just absolutely terrifying, right? I mean, just think about all that space junk. And I think we should be thinking about space junk and all these satellites and whatnot, not to mention just what is this? I mean, when we speak about this strange astrology that seems to be coming our way in 2020, and even Taurus and Uranus and the lightning bolt coming into the Earth, And that tower card image, I mean, 5G, you've probably done some research about, you know, the great technological breakthroughs it will perhaps provide, but also the potential health crises that might accommodate it. So we see 5G to transform lives in one way or another, or perhaps both, or, you know, I think this is a very important consideration. And yeah, we'll utilize the Qigong slide here. This, I guess I'll just jump ahead and say this is one of my recommendations to myself and to you to really commit to figuring out and anchoring into the electrical system of our own bodies, the nervous system of our monkey suit, right? So Qigong and ancient technology, Tai Chi, to do this yoga, asana, dance, whatever it may be for you. This is a year that because the lightning rod Uranus is coming, the lightning bolt is coming down to earth, you want to have the rod. Now we, especially you're watching this, we astrologers, we are here as divining rods in the marriage of heaven and earth. Yeah. But if we are not stable in our own situation, we cannot receive that higher energy of the heavenly information without blowing up. So it is a time, especially now, to get very grounded. I say this on a personal level, community, culture, humanity, world. All right. And I think importantly, we can look at this symbol of, you know, the EMF, for example, as a result of the virus of humanity attacking and forgetting its connection to the true mother, our earth, and what, you know, and that's, you know, a very real thing that we must, I think, consider, obviously, and shift and come back into an intentional practice and experience of the earth consciousness and knowing that we are cells of her body. But if we honor that we are cells of her body, how could we be doing any of this stuff without her permission? Do you know what I mean? Or, I mean, I just, you know, there's a whole kind of academic pursuit called cyborg anthropology, which is based upon that. And by the way, to honor nature, there was a beautiful red-tailed hawk just flew by out here. So the sun comes into this. But, you know, I mean, maybe we are just the moving parts for Earth, and she is utilizing her moving parts to help her increase her vibe, bro. I mean, how many, speaking of woo and new age traditions, are talking about increasing your vibration? This is happening on Earth, and it might be not natural because humans are doing it, but are humans not natural? So it's a very interesting contemplation. I'm not trying to say I'm on one side or the other. I just think it's an important thing for us to walk in the woods. And more importantly, with this shifting energy, for us to really get true into our own energetic and grounding in our body. All right. So I was really stoked to see at the Organization for Professional Astrology's iAstrologer event in October of 2018, to see that Shannon Gill-Jones and Russell Olhausen brought this cosmic dance, this ecstatic dance, to the astrology community. I mean, we go to these astrology, you know, conventions, they really are, and we typically sit in hotel boardrooms and listen to these wonderful transmissions from people, but we don't spend much time in our bodies. So getting more again into the yoga, the qigong, the tai chi, and the dance, you know, this is a wonderful way not only to respond to Uranus and Taurus, but to welcome Uranus and Taurus, so that that force can be profound for us personally, in our culture, etc., you know, in our community, I should say first. So I love seeing that, even though my own fear of dancing in public and all that, the ritual of this dance, it was so easy to open into. I mean, I'll just say that I cried for a good 10 minutes in there and really released some stuff that was just being constricted. And my brother Bear really like helped me and helped me move some energy, Reiki, like in the moment, in this dance. It was so powerful. And so I just love that OPA and astrologers were welcoming this embodied practice in our community. And this one as well, I was invited to teach astronomy for astrologers in 3 days of that at the Organization for Professional Astrology's event. And I'm developing this curriculum to teach astrologers astronomy, because May, Taurus, and Uranus remind us to reconnect to the truth that astrology is so much more than a symbolic language alone. Astrology is the poetic breath of nature. And when we renature our astrology by reconnecting the marriage of heaven and earth, for we are its living vows, we will reconnect to the roots of the astrological rules and the proofs of the astrological equations we use, and live a more heart-centered, embodied astrology in our service to ourselves, community, culture, and the world. And so I offer this to you as well. I'm teaching astronomy for astrologers online, and you can access a bunch of the teachings for free. Go to morethan.astrology.com/free, FREE, and I'll send you like 6 hours of free astronomy for astrologers. It's really not just for astrologers, for human beings who want to embrace, again, as the ancients did, this marriage of heaven and earth. People ask me why I do this. Why do I want to build sundials and medicine wheels? Why do I want to track the sun's movement on the horizons? Well, it's first of all to know more about my craft. Actually, that's second. First of all, and I'm just starting to understand this, it's to connect myself as a living talisman. Right. So in the magical practices, well, if we want to make a sun talisman, you use gold and there's solar symbols, and you want to do this on a Sunday because it's the day of the sun and in the hour of the sun, or with the sun at its height and high noon light and all this. Yes. But we are that gold. And so the more that we celebrate and ceremonialize and participate with the changing energies as the moon swims through the signs and therefore the elements, the modalities, etc., the more that we make ourselves available to have direct communication and information sent from moon or sun or Saturn or Jupiter or that. And this is part of the grounding nature in astrology coming and landing in the body. There's a beautiful interest in astrology that's growing and expanding. And we now are being called to remember the deepest roots, which is the actual living practice of being with these planetary beings and witness in the sky, just as it is respectful for wherever you are in space and time for me to look into your eyes as we share here. It is respectful for me also to look into the great red eye of Jupiter when I'm speaking with Jupiter. And in doing this, I make myself more of a vessel to receive direct messages from these planets so that I can be in service as an astrologer in this modality of healing that I have chosen, or that has chosen me and you. Yeah. So perhaps enough. Uranus and Gaia. This is not typically the image that comes to mind when we think of them mythically, but rather Gaia being raped by Uranus. She, it is said, created the heavens to embrace her, and it went haywire. And how can we not apply that mythos, to our own experience, or to this strange experience of the world, or perhaps the raping of Earth by technology and the symbolism? But understand as well, truly, also Uranus, the heavens, Gaia, Earth. And this is what the raping of Earth by the heavens looks like. Not to say that these things aren't meant to be when they go down, but something went down not long ago. We finally found some evidence. If you've tracked the work of like Graham Hancock, and more importantly, more specifically, I should say, Randall Carlson recently, this idea that yes, 12,000 years ago, a great comet struck the Earth and nearly killed our entire species. Yeah. So Barbara Handclough has this wonderful word for this, catastrophobia, that we can't even look back to a certain deep pain in our own experience as a species. But these are the things with Uranus and Taurus right now that I have seen when I don't deny that part of me that is open to the woo and the revelations. And I think 2019 is a year for that, as I will express throughout the series of 2019 astrology videos. I have seen that this is in time when blocks are being cleared so that we can feel back further into the past that was once limited by this immense pain of this death of the most of us. I mean, the great majority of us, almost all of us, at a time when we were actually much more psychically, telepathically connected to one another. And that these rememberings, which does not have to be like a conscious remembrance or some past life soul retrieval or something like that, but rather just the information and the energetic is coming back, and a part of our collective soul that went someplace safe in this great destruction is now willing to come back home, and we are going to have to, in a sense, serve it by helping to offer nurturing so that it can reach the maturity that we have found through our own evolution since this time. But very importantly, it's coming back with a great naivete before the great twisting that has happened in this fear of the heavens, because we earthlings were almost nearly destroyed by that Uranus side of the sky. So one thing about these city lights, which are removing us from the natural experience of the heavens, we also feel protected by them, not just because, robbers on the street, as they might say, are on the path, but because there's a fear that the sky might open again and destroy us, and that's not going to happen. So when I speak in this way, and sometimes I feel it's not grounded when I do, so I reserve much even in how I'm communicating right now. I'm often asked, well, what can we do about it? Should I have a soul retrieval, yada, and I'll suggest many things we can do, like the Qigong, Tai Chi, dance, what may it be, to really embody, but it's not to have a remembrance of this happening like intellectually, but rather just through our own experience. And the greatest gift that we can give in this remembering, bringing back together, putting back together, solve et coagula, break apart and put back together, is to live our lives in a good way. It's to be good brothers and sisters and children and parents and lovers and all of that. That is the great challenge in our changing times, how to stay true and practice what we preach. And this is a year to really tune into that and not to lose ourselves into the fear of what might come, but to sit in love of what is, regardless of how it may look. All right. So we will, however, be kind of salting the wound of a collective pain, maybe very subconsciously and collective superconsciously. It was 12,000 years ago that Plato said Atlantis sank. So I said one of the naughty A words, like astrology, Atlantis, but here we are. And as a collective wound is coming to the surface again, no better medicine than that by the greatest centaur mentor, the healer Chiron, who ingresses Aries. Now, Chiron did enter Aries last year in April, but like Uranus back into Aries, Chiron went back into Pisces for some unfinished business. Now, this Pisces-Aries crossing, just as it was for Uranus with Fukushima, and I'm not at all suggesting we're due for that event again. In fact, I would suggest we're due for a healing of events like that, with Chiron crossing this world point. The Pisces-Aries cusp is due east of Earth. East is the place of new beginnings. Chiron gave himself to take Prometheus's place. Prometheus, who had said it was chained to the carcasses for 400 years with his liver pecked out by this eagle for his hubris of stealing fire. And one of the conditions for his release was that an immortal must choose to take his place, and Chiron did so. Chiron chose this and announced this, but did not take Prometheus's place. He was rather honored by Jupiter, by Zeus, for this gift of compassion that Chiron first gave to the realm of immortality, by saying that he would take Prometheus's place in this eternal torture. And while Prometheus was released, Chiron was given his stage in heaven as the constellation Centaurus, which many in the southern realms know because of the great southern cross that is that centaur's leg. And Chiron, in a sense, was repositioned to the Sagittarius constellation, the Archer, who suddenly grew horse legs once Centaurus fell from the northern hemisphere in the Greek point of view through precession. And now I'm getting maybe more technological than necessary. But speaking of technology, you're hearing me speak about Prometheus, and I am relating him as maybe Rick Tarnas was the first to, or maybe not, but very sensibly to the planetary energy of Uranus. And as Uranus now leaves Aries and Chiron comes into Aries, you see Chiron is taking the place of Prometheus. Now, why did Chiron develop this great compassion? He did because he dropped the poison arrow quite miraculously and serendipitously in his own shin, and the deadliest poison that was known, a poison that Chiron himself had taught his student Hercules to craft from the blood of the Hydra he defeated in one of his great 12 labors. This poison now mingled with the blood of this great centaur mentor, and though he was the greatest healer known, he could do nothing to heal himself. And so he developed all these things, maybe the qigongs and acupunctures, and to try, and none of it worked, you know. But he also developed this deep compassion, because now one who was immortal or half immortal, son of Saturn, Chiron, could feel the pain of mortality, for he was half mortal, son of Philyra. And in this pain, he developed empathy and compassion, and so chose to take Prometheus's place, which did not have to happen, you see. And this is a very important thing. So we have had these wounds opened, you know, by comets, by Fukushimas, by 9/11s, by much more. And we don't have to dwell in the wound of it for the awakening. It's not a wrong thing to do, but let us honor that Chiron, who was this great father to so many semi-divine ones. Chiron, whose own birth was seen in his monstrosity as being born half horse, was rejected by his mother. And I'll share more about that in the story. Saturn turned himself into a horse to escape detection in his mating with this mortal, or this nymph here on earth, Philyra, to escape detection by his wife Rhea, or Ops. Saturn took the form of this horse in the moment the seed was planted, and so Chiron was born as the first centaur, half human, half horse. And it said his mother just denied him because he was this freak, and so he grew up as an orphan, and it said raised by Helios, Apollo, by the sun, and taught these great ways, you know, of music and healing and all things, and developed the warrior way. But he had a great compassion for the orphans of this realm. Now let us understand, half horse and half human, we are all this. We are asked to embrace, I think, especially in this year and the years to come, our animal side and our animal nature. You see Chiron in this beautiful painting, and I'm sorry I don't know who painted it, but with the hooves on the tiger, overcoming fear. You see, and this is Achilles on Chiron's back. Achilles was one of Chiron's many students. We could really say were Chiron's children, because they were like Achilles or Hercules or Jason or Theseus, semi-divine ones who were cast down to earth and not really even aware in so many cases of their immortal or heavenly heritage. And, you know, this is the case for us too. So Chiron in so many senses took them under his wing, or under his whatever a horse has right there, you know, and raise these orphans. And so with Chiron and Aries, we can speak about this great master of the martial arts who trained Hercules and Achilles and Theseus and Jason. But Chiron also, you know, he taught it all. And why don't we think about that time that Chiron taught Orpheus to first play a chord, or that Chiron first taught Asclepius to harvest mugwort, the great healer through the realms of dreams, Asclepius, the great bard and master healer through the medicine of music, Orpheus. You know, these are students of Chiron. This is Chiron, and Chiron at this world point, this Aries point, it is a place of the rise of new beginnings. So we will connect to the great gift that is Chiron and Aries by staying true in the Chironian. That's the name of the cave in which he taught, because this was the great teacher, Chiron, who taught through the quadrivium, you know, sacred geometry and number magic and musical harmony and astronomy, to open us to the mysteries, including astrology, that opened the gateway to the higher mysteries. And I was going to speak about Saturn and Capricorn and Jupiter and Sagittarius, but I feel like this is the right place to start. Stop. Part 2 of this 2019 astrology. Let me just say that here you are in the Chironian, being expressed not through the master mentor, but me, Gemini Brett, and I appreciate the opportunity to express some of what I feel in the planetary welcomings and initiations of 2019 and share how I feel we can really open ourselves and connect to these heavenly happenings to be great messengers of the transformation of earthlings. So may this be our way. I'm not sure when it will be, but I will continue this series and look at Saturn and Capricorn and Jupiter and Sagittarius, and then we'll come into the Mars and then speak about some of the great alignments of this year. And so I hope you're enjoying this share, whether you're watching it live on Facebook or in the future on Facebook or at YouTube. I sure hope you'll give it a like, maybe leave a comment. That means so much to me. And share it around if you feel that others will enjoy this. You know, I would love to spread the message. And I invite you to come over to my realm on the web, which is morethan.astrology.com. It needs an update, but a couple of things I know you will find there, an events page, which will show, among other things, that I will be speaking in San Francisco on January 19th, Joy and Saros, about eclipse cycles. I'll be in Mexico in January, Mexico City, and also Merida, or near there in Shisham. I'm not on the site yet, but I will be in Portland, Maine for like a 3-night star camp around the June solstice. I'll be at the Great Lakes Astrological Conference in late June, early July in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'll be in Athens, Greece in September, and it looks like Istanbul, Turkey around the September equinox of 2019. There's amazing happenings. All right, so come, join me in person. And if you feel like, and you're in a good space to, and certainly I'm not trying to lay a trip on you, but if you'd like to give back for anything that you might be receiving here, you will find a donate button at morethan.astrology.com. And more importantly, you'll find a services button where you could book a session and we could dance through the song of your soul, which is how I consider the birth chart to be, that it's not something that I'm meant to read like a book, but rather something that I can tune into. It is your art and you are the artist. And I have the great honor of hearing so many of these great songs and reflecting what I hear in them to people. So this journey will continue. I'm not exactly sure when because I'm nuts busy lately, but we will find that time. So just to end again, and let's look at this slide. I'm sorry to say I couldn't find who the artist was of this slide either. And it's a good time in that reminder to thank the many artists who unknowingly and perhaps subconsciously, psychically contributed to the images that I'm showing here. This is just a beautiful one. I think that reminds us of the truest importance of the Chiron energy, okay, which is connecting us to the miracles of the mysteries. And so here you are a seeker, asking these great questions that perhaps can't be answered, but by greater questions and exploring these wonderful mysteries. This truly is the way of the Chironian, which is not just about warrior stuff and the wounds that open compassion, but it is about the high teachings and the low teachings of our heavenly and earthly self as we bring the mysteries into our life to explore and awaken with this dream so we can contribute together to bring the vision that will set us free. So thank you again for spending some time with me here today. This is your friendly astronaut, Gemini Brett, signing off. I will see you in space.